Hello and welcome to Wisdom Bites. Hope you're well. Thank you once again for joining us. Very much appreciated. And in today's program, I'm going to be looking at exactly what's been going on with the Bitcoin price and what's been driving it. There was some very important news that came out yesterday, and we'll have a look at that and the implications on the Bitcoin price over the next few days and weeks and months. And as per the title of this video, we're coming up to a level where Bitcoin normally comes up to, and it's only done this 3 times in the past, and why this has been the best time to actually take profits. I'm also going to show you on the Fibonacci retracement why certain levels are incredibly important based on the historical narrative. But there is one caution that people seem to have missed, and I'm going to tell you exactly what that caution is within the price. So if that sounds interesting, then without further ado, get yourself a cup of tea, sit yourself down, eyes on the screen, and let's get cracking. Okay, before I begin, the usual polite reminder. Please remember, everything in my videos is just for educational purposes. So I would always urge everyone to do your wider research before you make any investment decisions or any swing trade decisions. So this is the news that I was talking about. What we had yesterday was the news that in the next 8 days, we have an opportunity by the SEC. It's a window of opportunity to approve all the 12 spot Bitcoin ETFs. And that was from yesterday all the way up for 8 extra days until the end of next week. And this will be the last opportunity for the SEC to approve all those 12 Bitcoin ETFs before January 10th, when there will be another opportunity to do so. Now, knowing how the SEC work, i.e. very, very slow, very patient, very methodical, I would not expect this. I would say there's only a 20, maybe 30% chance that they will actually approve this time around. They have a habit of delaying things, so I would say on the whole we would have to wait until January for these to be approved. But it did actually put a little trigger on the Bitcoin price as we went all the way up to 38,000 yesterday. A little bit lower, it says here that we still believe 90% chance by January 10th for spot Bitcoin ETF approvals. But if it comes earlier, we are entering a window where a wave of approval orders for all the current applicants could occur. So that's the operative word. As you can see on the news, this is the hourly chart on the Bitcoin price. It triggered off a little bit of a buying spree here, only for it to be sold off later on in the day. So this is where we're at 36,540 currently. So what is this level that the Bitcoin price has actually hit only 3 times previously? Because now we're coming up to it for the 4th time only. And this is where the majority of the whales, the large institutions, the large players will be taking profits, while the retailers will be buying into this and then having to hold their positions to write down. And what am I talking about? I'm obviously talking about what I've been talking about for the last 9 months, and that is the pi cycle. Every cycle so far, before the halving, this red vertical line, we come up to the pi cycle line here. This was the first halving, this was the second halving, right up to the pi cycle red line, and one more time in the last cycle, all the way to the red line. And after that, as you can see, we had a big sell-off. This is the time to sell if you wanted to take profits. It is one of our strategic points to take profits in our long-term portfolio. That's not an advice for people to do that. I'm only sharing with you what I'm planning to do. Obviously, I don't hold Bitcoin, as I've mentioned many times. My holdings are in the Bitcoin miners, and this will be the appropriate time for me to take profits when the Bitcoin price hits the pi cycle red line. So as you can see, once it hits that line, there is a big sell-off to the downside. And that's happened in every one of those previous cycles. So back in 2016, once we'd hit the red line, a sell-off there. And in the first cycle, as I showed you, once we hit the red line, there was a sell-off to the downside and another one there. So this is what we can expect once the price comes up to the red line of the pi cycle. I also want to show you something very interesting which I haven't shown you before, and that is you may be noticing these orange lines here. So let me go through these orange lines and why the Bitcoin price, based on the historical narrative, will not come back below the orange line. That's our guide that we will hold support at this orange line. So if we go back to the first cycle here, you can see that when we'd bottomed out, the price came and actually found support on this orange line. This all happened before the halving, by the way. And then there was a third support here. And look, after that, we never came back to this line one more time. So this was providing the support and giving us a clue of what was going to happen in the future. Then we went on this big run here, the parabolic phase of the bull cycle, which occurs after the halving, to the top of that cycle. In the second cycle, exactly the same. We'd bottomed out here. We created this support all along up to the halving and even after, and that was our trigger that it's not going to fall below this orange support line here. And then we went all the way to the top in 2017 at 20,000. And finally, the third cycle in 2021, once again, we'd bottomed out here, created our support at this point. And if you draw that line through that, you can see that the price didn't come back and we topped out at 64 and 69. And the most interesting thing is, what's happening now? Look what the price has done. We're currently, having bottomed out here, we found support at this level here at around about the 19,200, then found support one more time here at 25,000, and this is happening again before the halving. So the chances are, the probability is, even if we have a correction at this point or at this point, the chances are we're going to actually come back and find support on this orange line. And if you extend that line, you can see that by the time we get to the halving, that line is going to be about 35, 36,000. So that's our safety net going forward. And all those people still waiting, and I've been saying this for the last 11 months, anybody who's waiting for these prices to come back are really fooling themselves. And what they're doing is they're locking themselves out from the profits to be made up here, all the way to the end of this bull market in 2025. But currently the pi cycle is exactly at 51,000. So we know with a high degree of probability, based on the historical facts, the historical narrative, the price for Bitcoin is going to come and hit this line here at about 51,000. But as I've been showing you in the past many videos, and I've been talking about this for the last 9-10 months, and that is there is another line called the RSI MTF, and that currently is at 41,100. So this is what it's done in the past. It's come up to the RSI MTF line first. It's got rejected, as I showed you in the last video in 2019, where these two were apart. In the past, they've actually been together when the price has been rising. So the price has been rejected at the points where both of them are colluding. But this time, they're actually diverged. So what happened in the last cycle was we got rejected at the RSI line first, then came up to the red line, and then got rejected for the bigger pullback. So the main takeaway from here is don't lose focus on these two targets here. The first one is at 41,000, and this may come down lower. As you can see, when the price rises, the RSI line comes lower, so it may come down to 40,000. So we may get a bit of a pullback at the 40 of something like a 15-20% pullback, and then make our way back up again to hit this red line as it's done in the past. What I want to show you is something very interesting of what's happened in all the cycles before, and that provides the confluence of what I'm saying today, and that is to use the Fibonacci retracement. So in the first cycle, when we topped out here at the first peak and came up to the red line before the halving, you can see that we came up to the 61.8 golden pocket level. At this point, didn't quite make it to the 78.6. So the 61.8, very important line before we got rejected down here, and then further on down here. In the second cycle, when we came up to the red line, as you can see quite clearly here, we came up to the 61.8, but this time we went up to the 78.6. So these were the two levels. In the first cycle, we didn't quite get to the 78.6, but we got to the 61.8. In the second cycle here, 61.8 and the 78.6. And in the last cycle, from 2018 onwards, as the previous cycle, we'd got to the 61.8 and the 78.6. And those of you with a keen eye will have noticed many times in all of my videos for the last 10 months now, I've had these two white lines, this box here and this line here. And I've been predicting this ever since we bottomed out at this point, that based on the historical facts, this chart always comes back up to the Fibonacci retracement when we do them here, and this is at the 61.8 golden pocket and that's this box here, and the 78.6 as per the previous two cycles, and in the first cycle which showed the 61.8 but not quite the 78.6. So these two levels, incredibly important, and they happen to be exactly where the pi cycle is for the 78.6, and I'll have to go away from the BLX chart because the BLX chart doesn't show the RSI MTF line, but as you can see on the non-BLX chart, the RSI line, the RSI MTF, is right on the 61.8. So once again, providing confluence further for a rejection at these 2 points here. Incredibly important. I don't see anybody else out there in YouTube land actually talking about these two particular lines. They're not talking about the Fibonacci retracement where the price is most likely with a high degree of probability. Always remember, in these charts, there's nothing that's of guarantee. There is nothing of certainty. It's all probabilities and possibilities. So as you can see, there's a lot of confluence for these 2 points here at 40,000 and 50,000. So what is the word of caution? Well, what we have developing on the daily chart is a bearish divergence. As you can see, the RSI is making lower highs and the price is making higher highs. So sooner or later we are going to get some sort of a pullback, and once again this feeds into the 2 points that we're talking about. So there may well be one more leg up for the Bitcoin price to the 41,000, and then this bearish divergence is going to play out, and once it's set down here, that'll be the point to take going back up towards the 50,000. And there, with a high degree of probability, will be the big pullback that we normally expect before the halving. And the reason why I've got the stochastic RSI is that you can see there's still room for the stochastic to go higher. So this may well push it up to the 41,000, then come back and reset, and then go back up to the 50,000. So this is what I'm expecting over the next few weeks and months. And we've got our 60-day cycle going on at the moment. As we can see, we're coming up to the middle of this cycle, which started here on day 51 of the previous cycle, and this is the end of this cycle in the middle of December, and we're coming to the midpoint. Normally we would have expected some sort of a mid-cycle fall before coming up above the previous high after the midpoint here to create a right translated cycle, and then to fall into the 60-day cycle low before we went into the new cycle here. So once again, this seems to be playing out according to all the confluence that I've shown you. So either we're going to have a quick move down to the downside, scare everybody, frighten everybody into selling, and then the whales will pick up those Bitcoins and push it up new high from this previous high here to create that right translated cycle. And then we're going to be moving into this 60-day cycle low on this green line, which has been showing a lot of support and resistance. So that's how I see the 60-day cycle panning out over the next few weeks. Okay, before I go, just a quick update on the swing trades that we're playing on the Bitcoin miners. As you know, my investments are in Bitcoin miners and not in Bitcoin. But what we do at the Bitcoin Miners Club is to use the 60-day cycles and get into swing trades to play the cycles. And between now and the next 2 years, we've got around about 8 more cycles. And the current position is this. We started this swing trade about 3 weeks ago on the 18th of October. We got stopped out on one of them at 7.5% profit. Yesterday, I closed the position on the miner B at 33% profit. This is within 3 weeks. And on the other one, we got stopped out at a minus 5%. But yesterday, I started another trade on miner D, and that's live at the moment. And that's up around about 7.5% currently. There seems to be quite a bit of upside, and you can see the results we've had in the past. In March, when we had the first round of the swing trades, we had increases of 37%, 22%, 52%, 42%, 39% and 21% respectively here. And in the second round of the trades in July, we'd gone up to 56%, 85% and 86%. On the third round of the swing trades, when we had the two failed cycles on the 60-day cycles that we go by, then they were all stopped out. And this is the fourth round that I've just showed you. And if you want to join us on the Bitcoin Miners Club, what we do is we do the 60-day cycles for entries into the swing trades, as well as doing the long-term portfolio with undervalued companies for the next 2 years, and all things to do with the Bitcoin miners. All you would have to do is to click the join button, and you can be there for the price of a coffee per week at $12.99 per month. Okay, so I'll leave it there. I hope you found value in the video. If you did, then please do remember to like and to subscribe and to turn on the notification bell. And if you've got any comments, questions or suggestions, then leave them in the comments below. Until the next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.